Hello, thank you for joining me for these techniques. I'm just going to talk you through different ways of holding your yarn and hook. There is a traditional way, but at the end of the day it's really down to what's comfortable to you. Now, a traditional way is to have your hook in your right hand, and obviously if you're left-handed it would be this way, and you hold it like a knife. The other way is to hold it like a pen. I find holding it like a knife gives me more movement, how I can move the hook. Some people who knit, so you hold the yarn in your left hand, and once you've made your slip knot, the yarn goes over the index finger, and then I just pop it over my little finger like that. For me, that gives me enough tension. However, lots of people like to wind it around their finger once or twice or even more. You might want to thread it through all your fingers. You might want to thread it round your little finger. It's all about what is comfortable for you to get the correct tension. So this is how I hold mine. And you should hold the knot up here so that you can let go of the hook and it stays in the stitch. If you're a knitter and you can't get to grips with holding it that way, you can hold it and do the yarn as if you're knitting. So that you would hold it like this, you would go over the hook and pull the stitch through. So you can do it that way, so that you still can crochet in the way that lots of people knit. So I just use the traditional way, which is a bit of a bunny here, bunny's ear, and then that's his mouth. There we go. So from this point I go into making a chain. So I put the yarn over the hook, and because I have this yarn section here, it makes it much easier and quicker to put the yarn over. You could hold the stitch and actually put the yarn over that way, come back and hold the stitch and pull it through. What I do is go over, move my thumb and finger up to right next to the hook. I'm holding the stitch tight so it doesn't change its size, and I pull it through. I then push the hook all the way through, back to the thumb grip, and do my next one. Push your hook all the way through. Now the reason you do that is because this is the width of your hook here. If you were to do everything down here, it's a smaller size, so therefore it would be extremely tight and you won't be able to pull the stitches through. I'll try and demonstrate that. So you go over, down here, and can you see they're all tightening, and then you're trying to pull it through the stitch, but the stitch is also tightening because you've got this really, really tight and you can't always get it through. So you have to push it back. You hold this here to keep that stitch the same size, so that when it goes down here it's actually quite loose, and then you're just pulling the yarn through. And my finger comes down to release the yarn, and as I push the hook back up and I hold it, my finger comes up and pulls the yarn through my hand from the ball. So yarn over, squeezing the stitch here at the base, bringing the hook, and I'm pulling the hook through. I'm not taking it off with my left hand. So yarn over, pull the hook through the stitch, bringing my finger down to release the tension of the yarn, bring my hook back up so that the stitch is up by the thumb grip, bring my finger back up to pull the yarn through from the ball. Over, holding it on the top, I'm now holding it here, through, over, up, through, Now you do have to be careful that you keep the chain facing the same way so that all your V's are lined up on top of each other. Now if we were to work into the back of that chain, so if you were doing something row by row, I would turn it over, and the stitch has a running spine, straight stitch running all the way through. And I've done another one in a different yarn because I think you might be able to see it better. So here's the other one, and you can actually see those straight bumps like a spine either side, in the middle of either side of the stitch. So on the front, that's all you see, the V, so that's either side, but underneath there's a third part of the stitch, which is this spine. And what I'm going to do is work through these spine stitches to create my first row. Now you have to miss the first one because that is your turning chain, and you go into the next one. So this straight bit on this, the spine here, is that piece there. So this is just for a double crochet, a UK double crochet. I'm going into that spine stitch, yarn over, engaging the yarn and pulling it through. Then these two stitches come back to the thumb grip and you hold them with your index finger. You yarn over again. You bring your thumb and finger of your left hand up to hold the stitches. You engage the yarn and pull it through those two. Bring the stitch back to the thumb grip and hold it. That enables you to go on to the next stitch. So you pick up that spine stitch here, and as you can see on the back it just leaves the V. Turning it back over, yarn over and engage the yarn and pull it through. Bring it back to your thumb grip, yarn over, pull it through the two on your hook. Just do that a few more times. Oops. Pull through two into the spine, bring the yarn through, over and back. Bring the stitch back. You can hold it for the size while it's moving up and down the hook while you insert the hook into that spine stitch. Engage the yarn, bring it through. Then as you bring that one back, you're holding them both. Yarn over, bring it through the two. So there's the start of your UK double crochet row. Just do a few more for you. And that's how you go into the chain with a UK double crochet, because it leaves you this lovely V edge, which is the same as the V on the top. Just makes a neater edge. If you didn't go through the spine, let's just show you what happens, and you went just through that side of the stitch on the front and you do your double crochet, you can be left with holes, and sometimes you might not just pick up the first one, you pick up both. So, and then you would get these loops at the bottom. So to avoid that, you just go into the spine at the back, and that gives you your neat edge. Like so. Now I won't go all the way to the end, but what I'll do now is show you how to row by row on the double crochet. So I'm turning my work so I don't have to let go of my hook or my yarn, and you literally just flick it over from right to left. I'm then going to do a one chain, which is your turning chain, like this, just to give you that height to continue across the row. If you think of a brick wall, you need a brick at the end to give you the height to fill in, and this is the same theory. Now I always go into the first stitch. I don't generally use my turning chain as a stitch, so I will go into the first stitch, picking up both parts of the V, yarn over and engaging and pulling it through, bringing them back to hold, yarn over, through 2. And the next one, I'll show you these straight lines here, or semi-straight. If you put your hook in that corner there, it automatically has a natural opening for you to push the hook through and pick up both those V's. If you only pick up one, that's a totally different technique, and it gives a different effect, so you'll get lines. So try and go through both the V's unless the pattern indicates so. So yarn over, engage the yarn, pull it through, bring your stitches back and hold them, yarn over, engage the yarn, pull it through, back. Sorry, I just need a bit more. There we go. So I'm going across that straight line there into that natural indent, picking up both parts of the V. My yarn is already over because of the way I'm holding it. Bring it through, back on the hook to the thumb grip, hold them, yarn over, through the 2. Now if you can't get to grips with holding the yarn over your index finger on your left hand, then you can hold it like this. So you're actually holding the work, but as long as you can lift the yarn either by using your middle finger to create the length that you need to hook through, I automatically go back to my index finger, bringing it through, over, or you could actually let go. So once you're in, you can go over, pull it through, over, hold the piece again, in, over, and if you were knitting, or knitting style I should say, not knitting, you go into your stitch, yarn comes over, you bring it through, these come back, your yarn comes over, and you go through the 2. Now a lot of people get confused at the end. This is a stitch. This is your side of your first stitch that you did, and you go in 1, 2. That is your V. So engaging the yarn. This will keep your edge straight. And there, so now you have 2 rows. We're going to do a slip stitch. Now a slip stitch is a flat stitch that mimics this top V. And all we're going to do is into the stitch, pick up both parts of the V, engage the yarn and pull it through. But then we're going to pull it straight through the stitch on the hook. So I'll just do that again. So you go into the stitch the same way to pick up both parts of the V, yarn over and engage and pull it through, bring it back, and then you pull it through the one on your hook. So a couple more so that you can see the effect that it has. Okay, so you can probably see that there's a little step down from the double crochet along to the slip stitch, which just mimics the top. These are also used for joining and for creating shapes and things like that too. So just a small change just to show you how you work around. So I can go down one side and round the other, and this is used on a lot of my characters. So again, we don't go in the first one, that's your turning chain, but we're going to do 2 in the second chain from the hook. So that's the first one, this is the second one. We're going to do 2, which in fact is an increase. Just by doing 2 stitches in the same place is an increase. I'm just going to do double crochets to the end of this chain, till you get to the last one. There we go, so we're at the last one, and this time I'm going to do 3 in this stitch, and what will happen is that it'll automatically give you an arch that makes you turn round to the other side. So that's 1, I've still got the V. I'm only still going through the one stitch. That's 2. And what I'll do here is I'll take the tail out the way and turn the work 180 degrees, and I'm still working in the same stitch, pulling the tail out the way and doing my 3rd double crochet. Now I can then tighten that because that's my slip knot. Okay, so now we've gone from working along here, we've gone round the corner, and now we've turned it so we're working on the other side. So here you have the V's that you left. So you go into each one of those and do your double crochet. If you wanted to, if you're finding it too difficult, you could go into the back loop only. That will leave a little line on the right side, or you can go in the front loop only, where the line will be on the underside. Now we've got to the last stitch. Your pattern will tell you how many to do in this last stitch. As we did 3 on the bend here, we'd already done 2 in the first stitch at the beginning, so now we just need to do 1 in the last stitch, so that one becomes 3, and that would be the end of your foundation row. And now you can go in an oval circuit. A lot of these are used on the feet of Knitty Critters, and that's how you would do it. So now what I'll do is I'll demonstrate a treble stitch. So I'm just going to pretend we're doing it in rows, and for a treble you need to chain 3 for a churning chain. That's the standard. Personally, I only use I only use 2. Now a treble stitch, you go over the hook first, hold the yarn into the stitch, yarn comes over and you engage. You pull it through the stitch, bring it all 3 then back to the thumb grip, yarn over again, and you pull it through 2 of the stitches so that you've got 2 left. Yarn over again and pull it through those 2. Now this is a lot longer stitch, and some people refer it to it as a granny stitch, but it's actually a UK treble. So again, over the yarn, into the stitch in the same way as we did for the double crochet, making sure you pick up both parts of the V, bring the yarn through, back to the thumb grip, you go over, through 2, back to the thumb grip and hold it, over, through 2. Now you'll notice I'm still holding it with my thumb and middle finger at the base of the stitch so that I have got control. If you don't hold it there, it's going to spin when you're trying to do your work, even if you're holding it here. So you go over, you're going in, you're bringing it round, you come over, through 2, over, through 2. If you're not controlling it, this is sort of thing is what happens. It just spins. You have to control. Hold it here sometimes. Hold it right by the hook is the best place so that you can let go. Because all you're doing with your right hand is feeding the hook and telling it where to go. The majority of things are done with your left hand, with tension, holding the yarn, feeding it through. So that's a treble stitch. Okay, I've just finished the row, and again you will see that that is actually a stitch here down the side. There we go. Turn it. Now for a half double crochet, your standard is 2 chain. You come over the hook first into the stitch, engage the yarn and pull it through so you've got 3. You go over the hook and you put it through all 3 loops on your hook. That's the stitch in between the size of the double and the treble. So over the hook, through the stitch, yarn over the hook, engage the yarn and pull it through, bring the 3 loops back to your thumb grip, over the hook, through all 3. Okay. Really is just putting 2 stitches in the same stitch. So here I'll use the half trebles to explain this. So you go over the hook, into the stitch, bring it through, you finish that stitch off going through all 3, and then you do exactly the same stitch in the same place. So what you have is you have 2 stitches coming out of the one base, and that will mean that you've added a stitch in that row. So we did it again, in, and then in the same stitch again, we've got 2. Okay. Now what I'll do is show you how to do, I'm going to undo these half. We'll do a decrease, but we'll do it with double crochet. And what you would do is you go into your stitch, yarn over and engage, pull it through, but then you would go into the next stitch, yarn over, engage and pull it through. So you have 3 loops on your hook, then you go yarn over and through all 3. I'll just do that again. So you go into the stitch, yarn over and engage, pull it through, into the next stitch, yarn over and engage, pull it through. So you've gone through 2 stitches, and now you're going through all of them, so those two stitches actually become 1. Just do that again. So it's part way, and then you go in the stitch, bring it through again and over. Now some places would ask you to do 3 together, so you would just continue and do a 3rd one, and you'd have 4 stitches on the hook, so you would then just bring it through the 4. And as you can see, that is actually already making my work curve, because I've reduced the stitches along here actually by 3 now, because I've done 3 2-togethers. So we've got a nice little curve there, and this is how you do shaping.